All right, so thank you guys for watching this video. Today for this video, what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be getting our MobaXTerm environment set up to log into HPCC and eventually run Cadence. So we're actually not going to be doing any Cadence work in this video. This is just going to be setup. So if you've already followed the setup in the slides and gotten access to Cadence, you can go ahead and skip this. But I would recommend just going ahead and watching it, maybe double checking, making sure that you got everything set up now. So on our MobaXTerm, again, MobaXTerm is a pretty nice program because it has everything kind of baked into the cake. There's nothing that we have to set up or configure multiple programs. Everything's just going to work perfectly with this program. But we still have to tell a couple things. So this is the MobaXTerm home screen. So whenever you double click on the program, this is what should open. And you can see I've already logged into the Quanta server, but I have gone ahead and deleted it from my sessions. That way we can just start over completely and make sure that we're doing this right. So first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go up into the top left and hit session, or you can also hit Control-Shift-N. And what this is going to do is this is going to start up a new session for us. Now we have to tell it what type of session. For this, we're going to be using SSH, Secure Shell. So if we click on SSH, it should open up these commands here, or these dialog boxes. Now, remote host is going to actually tell it where we're trying to log into. So for us, we're logging into the Quanta server, and its remote host name is going to be Quanta, Quanah, .hpcc.ttu.edu. Now, MobaXTerm also has a pretty cool feature built in that you can specify a username. So it kind of skips a step. Anytime you log in, you're not going to have to type in your username. So if we go ahead and click this, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm going to go ahead and click specify username and do AA Carmen. It's just going to be your eRaider ID. So mine is AA Carmen, and that'll just help us skip a step whenever we're logging in. Now we could go ahead and hit OK, but what I want to do is just make my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to click on bookmark settings, and this is what it's going to store the session name as. So whenever we come back to it in the future, this is how it's going to display itself to us. And it's not exactly intuitive. So what I want to do is I just want to rename this Quanta server. So it's a little bit nicer instead of that whole quanta.hpcc thing. Makes it just a little bit nicer for us to look at. You can also create a desktop shortcut if you want to, but I don't really feel a need, so I'm just going to hit OK. Now, since I went ahead and logged in and specified my username, it's just directly asking me for my password. But if you did not specify your username, it's going to ask for a username first, and then you can enter your password. And it's going to be your eRaider username and your eRaider password. So we can log in here. And now it gives us this nice little splash screen telling us that we're actually in the Quanta server. And the first thing that you should do is you should spend just a few minutes looking around at the file system. So the file system for Linux is especially important for Cadence because that actually determines quite a bit. And if you know just a little bit about Linux, then it's going to help a lot whenever you're actually troubleshooting, whenever Cadence eventually stops working on you. So the first command that I want to show you for this Linux terminal is going to be pwd. And that stands for print working directory, and that pretty much just tells us where we're at currently. So if you think about like the Windows File Explorer, it's asking where am I currently? So that might be your desktop / homework folder. Here it's going to be /home / AA Carmen. So pretty much all of our stuff is going to be in the /home / your username folder. That's where our kind of playground is. That's where we can work. Now, that's not to say that there's nothing above you. There is stuff above you, and you can look around there if you want to, but a lot of that's going to be admin protected because they don't want people just roaming around changing things. But yes, if you look around, you can actually see a little bit, but we're not going to do that for this video. So pwd will show us where you're at, and it should be /home / your username. And now let's see what's inside of the current folder that we're in. So we're in our home folder, and we can actually use the command ls. So that's going to be how we look around at what's in this current folder. So right now it looks like we only have this user-info, document. So because it's white, that tells you that it's a document. We'll see later on that if it's actually a folder, it'll be a different color. Different things have different colors. But this is just a document, and it's user-info. It has a little bit of information about your user. So ls shows us some of the files, but there are some hidden files. So just like how Windows has its own hidden files, Linux also has hidden files. And if we do ls-a, that's going to say show us all the files, even the hidden ones, and press enter, then we can see that there's actually quite a few other files. And all these files start with a period, and that's what makes them hidden. Okay, so anything that starts with a period is going to be hidden, and if we need to see those, we can use ls-a. And that is going to be kind of important later on. Now, the first thing that we need to do, if we just use ls, we can see that there's only our user info document. Now, what we actually need to do is we need to have ourselves a Cadence folder, because we don't just want to have Cadence stuff mixed in with MATLAB stuff mixed in with anything else, right? We want to just have a place for Cadence to live and all of our Cadence documents to live. So what we can do is we can actually make a folder. Now, Linux calls them directories, so we're just going to do mk, short for make, and make dir. So make directory, mkdir, and then tell it the name of the directory that we want to make. So I'm going to name mine AC_Cadence. So that's my initials and then Cadence. You can name yours whatever you want, but I'm going to stick with AC Cadence. And if we use ls again, we can see that that folder is now there. Now let's say that I accidentally made a directory and I misspelled Cadence. Like I used 2 A's, and that's just embarrassing, right? So that's embarrassing. I don't want that to be in my folder, because then any HPCC people who are auditing me are going to laugh at me, things like that. So if we actually make a folder and we want to remove it, what we need to do is we need to actually use the rm command. So rm means remove. And if we're going to remove something like a file, we just use rm and then the file name. So that'll remove that actual file. But we're not removing a file, we're removing a directory. And directories, if they're empty, we can still just use this rm command, but a lot of times they're not empty. And we just want to delete a directory and everything inside of it. So if we go into our, let's see, AC_Cadence folder. So CD is actually how we change directories. So now you can see down here, we are no longer operating in our home folder. We are in our home folder /AC_Cadence. Now, if I just make a quick file here, so touch is just how you make a file. So if I made a file called test.txt, and now I'm in this folder, if I want to go back and see how it looks for my home folder, I could type out that whole long path name from above whenever you use pwd to get back to that place that we were at. And it would work, and it would take us back there. But what if I'm in this folder and I don't want to have to type out that whole big long file name? Well, Linux actually makes it pretty easy. All you have to do is do cd for change directory, and then the shortcut for just going one step up, so going up to the parent folder, is just period. So if we do cd period and hit enter, it takes us back to the same spot. Okay, so now we're back in our home folder with our 2 directories. Now, if I try to use the rm command on AC_Cadence, that one that I misspelled on, it's going to say I can't remove AC Cadence because it's a directory and it has stuff in it. So what we actually have to do is we can do rm -r, and you have to make sure it's a big R. So what this does it does a remove recursively. So it'll remove whatever we tell it to, and then whatever's below it as well. So in this case, it's going to remove the directory and everything inside of it. So I need to make sure I'm really careful with this. So I'm going to remove that folder that I misspelled, and now it lets me. If we ls, we can see it's gone now. So now we just have our Cadence folder. So once we get our Cadence folder made, so we've made our desired Cadence folder and we made sure it's spelled correctly and everything like that, we can cd, which changes the directory, into our target Cadence folder. So we can change into our Cadence folder. And now if I ls, you can see there's nothing here. If I ls-a, all we have are these 2 little things here. And that's going to be standard in every single file. Remember, the dot is just how you get up one folder. And then the dot just means your current folder that you're in. And that's only useful for some other stuff, but we're not going to concern ourselves with it. So right now we're in our desired Cadence folder. And this is where you're actually going to want to pull up that PowerPoint that's on the Blackboard. So the Cadence startup tutorial for HPCC. And the reason that you're going to want to do this is because Dr. Lee has made our lives really easy, and he's done a lot of the Cadence setup for us. So Cadence setup is not super intuitive. Pretty much any foundry that you're using is going to have a different way of setting up Cadence, so it can make it kind of painful. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to use Dr. Lee's setup files. We're going to copy Dr. Lee's setup files from his folder, and then we are going to put them in our own folder. So if you look at the slideshow, it is going to be slide number 7 under the Cadence Startup Tutorial for HPCC. And we've already made our directory. So we've already made our directory, and his was titled ECE x321, and we've changed into that target directory. Now we're going to be using the cp command, and cp is going to stand for copy. So cp, and this first one just is -big P, and that's just going to preserve all the permissions because Linux is a little bit weird about who is allowed to do what, so we want to make sure that it's preserved exactly. And for this one, we actually do have to write out the whole long file name. So in this one, instead of going to our own folder, we're going to go /home/chali. So that's going to be Dr. Lee's folder. And then he has given us a share folder /c, big C, 5-setup /.cdsenv. So that's our Cadence environment file. And then we're going to hit a space. Make sure you hit that space. That's important. And then do /. And that just tells it to copy right here. So it's going to copy this file, this Cadence environment file. Oops. So we're going to copy this Cadence environment file from this location, and then we're going to put it right where we're at currently. And if we hit enter, we can ls. And it doesn't look like it's here, but remember, it's a .cds file, so that means it's actually hidden. So we can do ls-a. We can see that that CDS environment folder, or that, CDS environment file is there now. Now we're going to repeat this a couple more times. So this one is going to be very similar. So we're going to do cp-p/home/chain or /chali/share/c5 setup. Oops. And this is where I would actually advise copying and pasting from the slideshow into here. That way you can make sure you get the path exactly right. Do .cds init, and then space, copy it here. Now, if you didn't want to have to rewrite that whole thing, what you can do is on MobaXTerm, just press your up arrow key, and it'll use the previous command, and you can just continue hitting up until you get to the command that you want. You can even go back down if you pass it and things like that. So if I wanted to, I could have just gone up to the CDS environment and changed it to init, but we've already got it done, so we don't need to worry about that now. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy a cds.lib file. So that's going to be the libraries that we're using. So we're going to do cp. We don't need a -p this time. Actually, so what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to press up on the arrow key. I'm going to come back, remove this -p, and then just change this to cds.lib. And then we're going to copy it to the folder we are currently in. Make sure that everything is gotten here. So we've got CDS environment, CDS init, and CDS.lib. Okay, so last thing that we're going to need is we are going to need the model files. So we're going to cp-r, and that just means copy recursively. So we're going to copy the folder and everything in it. And then we're going to use this old path as well, the same one. And the good thing is that if we misspell some of this, it should tell us that such a path doesn't exist, and make it a little bit easier for us to actually figure out what we did wrong. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to copy this model folder, and that's why it's important to have this -r, so we're copying the whole folder, and we're going to copy that right where we're at. So now if we ls, we can see our cds.lib and our model, and if we do ls-a, we can see that we have our CDS environment, CDS init, CDS lib, and in the model files. Okay, so this only has to be done one time. So the first time that you log into HPCC, all this stuff has to be done. But the good thing is that once you get it done the first time, you're good. So now this is pretty much completely set up and ready to run Cadence. So right now, since we still have this Quana thing over here to our left, that's telling us that we're just working on the server and it hasn't allocated us any computing resources. So this is HPCC. And that means it's high performance computing. We want those high performing CPUs. And right now we don't have them. We're just working on a vanilla Linux server, and it's not going to be able to do these computations super efficiently like we want it to. So once we get into our Cadence folder and everything is set up, what we're going to be doing is we are going to first, we can try and run the Virtuoso command to open Cadence, but it's going to say the command is not found. Okay, now the reason for that is because we actually have to tell HPCC that we want to run Virtuoso. Okay, but like I said, we still need to get our CPUs set up and we still need to get the Virtuoso information loaded. So the way that we actually get CPUs allocated to us is we use the command interactive-p, and that's a little p, and then we're going to use Quana, interactive-p Quana. If we hit enter, we can see that it is going to wait for resource configuration, and it's going to give us some it's going to give us a CPU. So now we've actually got a CPU, and it's going to change from Quana to this CPU here. So we still have access to all of our files and things like that, but now we actually have a CPU for us to do our computations. So still, again, we can try running the Virtuoso and command, and the command's not found because we haven't told it that we're interested in running Cadence. And the way that we tell it that we're interested in running Cadence is we have to load Cadence. So we're going to use module load Cadence. And what that does is that pretty much tells the CPU we're interested in running Cadence Virtuoso. So go ahead and load all the commands that we're going to need. So it's going to load those Cadence commands. That way we can actually run Virtuoso and. And that and here at the end, you don't have to have it, but what it does is that it actually frees up the command line. So let's take a look here. If I use just Virtuoso, what's going to happen is that if I come back to this command line, once we see this window pop up, so our Cadence window pops up, this CIW window, and the library manager also pops up for me. So what we've got is we've got these two windows popped up, so now we're running Cadence and everything's working well. What we can see is that if I come back and I say, oh, I wonder where that file's at. If I do ls, the command line is not responding to me anymore. I can do this as many times as I want to, and it's not responding. That's because it's still running this Virtuoso command, and it's going to wait for this command to finish. And the only time it's going to finish is when we come over here, hit X. It's going to ask us if we want to quit. We can hit OK. And then once everything gets closed down, yeah, there we go. So now it's going to execute all those commands at once, and it gets a little bit annoying. But if we use Virtuoso and so use that little ampersand at the end, and now press enter, we can still work in the command line as much as we want to. Okay, so we can change to our home folder. We can browse. We can do pretty much anything that we need to. We can also run other commands. So that's kind of good because you might need to explore the file system a little bit whenever you have Virtuoso open. Okay, so this is just a little bit of how to get set up in Cadence Virtuoso. It's not the hardest thing ever as long as you follow the directions in the slides pretty easily, but I wanted to go ahead and get a video done. That way you guys could actually watch someone set it up and maybe get a little bit better idea. So go ahead, try this for yourself. If you don't want to come all the way to campus, you do have the option, use the Global Protect VPN to get onto the TTU network. That'll require your eRaider username and password again. But what that's going to end up causing is that whenever you end up doing Cadence, it's going to cause a lot more problems. Number one, it's a whole lot slower. So you have to be very patient if you're working at home. And it's also going to limit your productivity a whole lot because you're having to wait on things a lot longer than you would if you were just on campus. So this is going to be the EDA 0 video because we really haven't done any work with Cadence yet, but this will just be kind of a good setup, a good thing to watch before you actually start doing the Cadence tutorials. So if you have questions, please feel free to let me know. Other than that, thank you for watching.